Hello guys, today we'll talk about something that you may not know. I am a person, despite never going to that thing called college, is actually smarter than your average person. Okay, not at everything. There are things that I talk about like every other human. But I have of course, my own theory about how the universe works. No, it's no Big Bang theory, it's not the typical establishment science theories. Okay? And no, it's not, oh yeah, we'll find an alternative to the Big Bang Theory. The universe was created by someone or something. And no, I'm not saying, I'm not gonna put religion in this video either. This is my theory that I came up with. After studying, of course, thousands of videos, of course, about spirits and, of course, stuff like that. And similar types of videos, like, of course, the simulation theory and videos about the simulation hypothesis, and other things like that. I have come up with my own theory. This is called the video game theory. What is the video game theory? Well, someone else already proposed this type of theory, but they said that every life is random with a random type of presets. But I think that life is more like an MMO game. For example, game like World of Warcraft or Destiny. Okay? Those games are examples. And of course games like No Man's Sky. Okay? This world isn't real. Yep. Earth, this universe, everything isn't real. How do you know this? How do you know that this universe isn't real? Well, it's simulated. It is a massive MMO game. Okay? One of the bigger MMO games. And this entire universe is basically a gigantic simulation. Of course, the most popular proponent of simulation theory is Elon Musk. Of course, we all know Elon Musk is a supporter of the simulation theory. But my theory is a video game theory. Why am I proposing that this universe is a video game? It would be completely stupid. There's no controllers. Well, this universe is a virtual reality. Life is basically a video game. So I'll go over it basically in detail of why life is a video game. 1. There is life after death. Of course, the major component of this theory is yes, there is an existence after you die. Of course, because it's a video game. And a video game, you die and you respawn. Okay? Simple as that. But unlike other video games, each character that you create in this virtual MMO are all similar, but they're not. So, what does reincarnation have to do with virtual reality? Well, if you think about it this way, what happens when you die in the game? You respawn, of course. But in real life, you have to start over as a baby. Okay? You have to start over at the stage 1 of the game. It's kind of similar to a game called Spore, if you ever played it, or The Sims. Basically. And basically you start from stage 1. And each level or lifetime you complete, you advance in the video game. You become better at the game. And for example, people who are better at the game are more loving, caring, and less violent. And less prone to fear, and less prone to hate. So, but what about people who don't advance? That's the real question. What if you do not advance in the video game? Well, those are your drug addicts. Those are your criminals. Okay? And eventually the video game was like, enough is enough. Come on, okay? This isn't working. Okay? And of course we get to the other side in a second. No, in a minute. Couple minutes. But basically, in the game, okay, if you don't succeed in the game, basically, you'll be reset. You have a couple of options if you don't succeed. You can wash all the negativity from your consciousness, your soul, your being. You can basically reset your personality or go into the darkness. That's away from the rest of the real reality. Okay? And again, if you look at a lot of NDEs, a lot of near-death experiences, they mostly support that this reality isn't real. That this is a testing ground. Some people call it a school, but it's a game. Life is essentially a game. But if you think, oh yeah, it's a game, so let's not take it seriously. No, you have to take it seriously. Okay? If you don't take life seriously, you won't evolve. You won't go past the level. And you'll stagnate. And nobody wants to stagnate. Okay? Everybody wants to advance and evolve. Okay? And a lot of people are very low on the evolution scale. In terms of evolution scale. And it is most likely we had hundreds of lives in the simulation. We had hundreds of lives. But is there a way to read the simulation? Well, very few people actually do read the simulation each lifetime. And those are extremely advanced beings that no longer need the video game. No longer need the simulation. Okay? They no longer need this simulated video game anymore. And they'll do duties on the other side. Like, be guides to souls and beings and consciousness that are still trying to get through. Or I can just use players. Players that are still trying to get through the game. Okay? And entering the game, like playing any game, is free will. For example, no one's gonna force me to play Fortnite. Okay? You can't force me. Because free will is often involved. There are many players that have never joined the game and stay on the other side. Stay in this real reality. Souls, consciousness, whatever. They have stayed on the other side. Okay? Because they don't want to play the game. Because to them, the game is scary and the game is hard, too difficult. And the game of life, as we're gonna call it, is difficult. It is not an easy game to play. And the difficulty is why we evolve. Okay? And this is coming from someone who hates difficulty. Okay? The difficult things in life is what we evolve from. That's why we have stuff like pain and suffering and stuff. We don't evolve if we just get a perfect utopian world where everything goes right. That does not evolve. Okay? You do not evolve from perfection. Okay? But let's say, for example, this universe was completely and utterly perfect, and life was utterly perfect, there was no sadness, there was no anger, zero crime, nothing. For example, we need bad for the good to evolve. Okay? And of course, it sucks to be a bad person. And I'll give stagnant souls versus contracts. Because you can make contracts of the script before you arrive in the game. And this is very crucial. Okay? You can make contracts before you enter the game. Or this current reality. This virtual world. Okay, which a lot of people call them soul contracts. With other players and other beings on the other side, for example, animals and plants and stuff. And these people, animals, plants, wherever they are, again, you could be on another planet as well. But you're supposed to meet these people or animals. For example, pets. And people that have these contacts of you are typically family members, pets, close friends, even random strangers on the street, boyfriends, girlfriends, of course, significant others, pets. A lot of these, and even your standard normal friends, could have contracts with you. For example, if someone does something bad to you, one, they could be a stagnant soul, or two, they're trying to teach you a lesson. For example, let's say you have abusive parents, okay? But they're not stagnating souls. They act like that because you're supposed to learn something from it. You're supposed to learn, hey, I'm not supposed to act like that. And a lot of people do learn that. Of course, stagnant souls don't learn from that. Okay, stagnant souls learn people who commit crimes, people who are on drugs, people who have alcohol issues, people who ignore, who are extremely rude, and let's get out of the way. Being contracted with disability, for example, there are people who have behavioral disorders since they were born. That's a part of a contract. That's not a part of a stagnant soul, because you want more if you have a behavioral disorder or are disabled. Bold. And that's why, and again, a lot of Souls players and, other and animals want disabled bodies because it accelerates them through the game. Okay? It makes them go through the game faster because it makes them learn more. Okay? And especially evolves the souls around them faster, the players. And that's basically it about the player evolution. There's a lot more about player evolution you can talk about, but the evolution, of the game has been evolving. Okay? For example, humanity is much better than it was 1,000 years ago. Obviously, a sign that our consciousness, our souls, and all the players are definitely evolving. Of course, there's a couple stagnant souls, but the obvious trends. For example, crime is the worst it has been since centuries. For example, back in the day, Netherlands used to have extremely high crime. Now they have all the world's countries in the world. It shows that yes, we are evolving. And contracts, for example, a lot of things are contracted. Did for Earth, for humanity, and for everybody. And people will be surprised at what things are actually contracted in. There's a lot of channels that go into this stuff, so watch those channels instead. If you want to go into the nitty-gritty, when people are what would be Hitler's contract, or what would be Stalin's contract, or Trump's contract, or Obama's contract, Biden's contract, or any other figure in history. Okay, COVID's contract, the contract of COVID, and other viruses. There are a lot of channels to go over that. But now, what happens when you die? That is the real question. Well, it's simply like dropping out of it, turning it off. It's simply like exiting the MMO. You gain back into reality. It's simply like taking off the VR goggles. You're going back into reality. That is basically it. And again, a lot of near-death experiences support this theory, support video game theory as a whole. And a lot of NDEs, of course, support reincarnation, whereas, of course, it's supported by the video game theory, which supports that life is simply just a big video game. And other people will say, oh, it's a play, or a stage play, or but the whole point is to experience the game. You have to experience the game. The game has its own physics. The laws of thermodynamics are the game's physics, and the game's physics engine. the supposed heat death of the universe is basically pulling the plug on the simulated universe. Of course, there's an infinite amount of simulated universes. So there's an infinite amount of games you can play, an infinite amount of simulated universes. And multiversal theory pulls into this. I'm a big component of multiverse theory, and actually had dreams where I've been put into, where my consciousness has transferred to multiverses and multiversal worlds. I didn't get into those later, but multiversal theory basically means that there's more than one universe, and there's also parallel universes as well. Well. And a lot of these parallel universes are kind of pointless, but the big things. For example, many what-ifs in history. Like, there's probably I'm just going to put a few examples of parallel universes that exist. A universe where there's 24 countries in Northern America, and Africa is completely different. A universe where, basically, it's like 1984, the book. There's a universe where I'm a totally different person, and I didn't choose the contract that I picked. There's universes that are far different than ours. There are universes where we're basically a Type 5 civilization. Okay, so even if this quote-unquote universe ends, there's always other universes that consciousness can plug into. Okay, consciousness can plug into an infinite amount of universes. Your player can go into other universes. There are easy universes for more beginners and harder universes for more harder players. Whereas, if you get into a life that's too hard, you can always opt out, of course, before you're born and not even experience the game. But a lot of those people are called chicken out, are basically chickening out, because they won't evolve because they're too afraid. So we answered some of the bigger questions. If the universe is basically like that, but what goes on in the real reality? Well, the real reality, the true reality, the reality that we exit from when we die, is far different. For example, we're not limited by our meat bodies anymore, our simulated bodies. And that's it. And when we exit the simulation, the simulated reality, we know, yeah, our lifetime was just a simulation. It was not real. It was only there to advance us. Thus, as well. And we learn something most of the time from each lifetime, except for stagnant souls who don't learn anything from each lifetime and don't progress at all. Which we already talked about stagnant souls. They don't really go anywhere or do anything. And they're faced with those tough choices. And every universe has its purpose. Everybody has their purposes. And each person, no matter good or evil. So what is the purpose of evil? People will like to ask us, what's the purpose of evil people in the world? Well, it's the soul, the bad in the world. The soul people, what's right from wrong. Okay? Like, people want to know what's the difference between right and wrong. Well, that's the reason why. To evolve, evil is necessary. So, yeah, then now let's go on the other side. So, our senses are much different than on the other side. First of all, we don't have a physical body, and time works very differently than a simulated reality. A simulated reality and the real reality, time works very differently in both realities. Any other reality, since basically we are different beings, we are different from our simulated reality, we can create virtual simulations if we want to. Or when we reincarnate, come back into the reality, we basically come back into the simulation. Earth is, of course, one of many simulations. Earth is one of many simulations as well. So you basically can do whatever you want on the other side. You can help others, of course, guide others, and you can do jobs on the other side. Don't worry, there's no money, like in the virtual realities. There's no money you have to worry about. Now, again, and now I'll talk about the soul contract, or the script of your story. Everybody loves a good story in video games. We live in a massive open world MMO game. So basically the soul contract is basically the people you're supposed to meet. For example, you're supposed to meet certain people in your life. You're supposed to meet certain people in your life. Certain events are scripted to happen in your life. For example, a near-death experience is a scripted event that's supposed to happen in your life. And near-death experiences have become basically normalized at this point. Except for religion and atheists. They won't accept it. Because it goes against their beliefs. And there was a video called Religion is a Bug in the Game. I do believe that religion is a bug in the game. Because it basically takes people away from the real reality and worshiping. But religion also provides a comfort. It's a double-edged sword. Okay? Religion is basically a double-edged sword. It's good and bad. Religion can comfort you, but religion can be too strict. I think the best religions are the religions that are not too strict. Okay? For example, Buddhism is a very peaceful religion. And I think, but if you, like, for example, in the simulated reality, so yeah, reality is not real. It's just a big, massive simulation. We created this reality as a shared reality, a shared video game for all of us to evolve and grow. That's how reality essentially functions. And with these video game worlds, you evolve. You have a script that you have to follow throughout your life, but you can deviate it from it a bit or lot with free will. But there are certain events and certain things, for example, tragedies and, people you meet, those are all scripted, especially people you meet in your life. Considering that you both agreed to meet each other in your life, it is basically bound you meet every people. Boom. Boom. And now let's talk about, and then you learn lessons from said people. Good and bad. You learn lessons from everybody in your life. Right. And this reality is, of course, not real, so, yep. And what are dreams? Okay, there was something, every night, okay, we actually die every night. Yeah, you won't be surprised, but we actually die. And dreams is essentially our consciousness already creating their own virtual realities. Okay? Or even entering other realities and other timelines, other universes, essentially. Again, our consciousness can travel faster than the speed of light. Because we live in the other reality. It can enter universes. For example, astral projection is a very popular form of this, besides, of course, streaming, which we experience every night. But why do we need to sleep? Why do we have to sleep? Well, why do we have to recharge our phones? Okay, sleeping is basically recharging your body, essentially. For example, your phone needs to be recharged every once in a while. Your phone does not last forever. Okay? You eventually will get tired, and that's the whole point of a character in a game. You will get tired, and basically, throughout your day, you have things you have to fulfill. Okay? For example, you have to eat. Because that's a part of the design of the reality. You have to drink a part of the design of the reality. And other things like you have to keep yourself healthy to fulfill your destiny in the world. Well, and again, people are like, but what if you die early? Well, some people die early because it's a contract. It's an exit point from the simulation. And you have multiple potential exit points in the world. Okay? But what happens right after you exit the simulation? Well, you're going to need comfort because, again, taking off, for example, getting out of a virtual reality game, you need some readjustment to the reality, to the other side. And there are beings and people that you already know from the game, which is basically your friend group or soul group. And it also has members that are already still in the reality, but basically guides, angels, and people who are part of your group will basically be there to help you and readjust you back to the original reality. And basically, the cycle of life is basically like this. We'll start at the beginning. You're born, you grow up, you basically fulfill your adult side, you get old, you exit the simulation, you readjust to you readjust to reality, the real reality, not the simulation, the video game. You readjust to the reality, and you plan your next. Unless you don't have to go back into the game anymore, you make plans for your next game. Once again, and game your time can be up to anywhere from 10 to millennia of years, because you have free will to re-enter the game at your choice. You re-enter the game when you're comfortable. You re-enter the video game when you're comfortable, not when a force decides you, because you have free will over everything in this lifetime and of course in the other side, because that's a major component of reality. And every character in reality, including aliens and other advanced alien races, to us, to animals, all must abide by, of course, the laws of physics that were created by, of course, the game. So basically, that's the complete cycle of the game. The complete cycle of the game. So, yep, we have learned the basics of the game. We have found out the basics, the foundations of the game. There's a lot more I can tell you about. But of course, those have to be for another day. So what do you think of my video game theory? Do you think it's a good theory or a bad theory? Again, I'm not the brightest bulb out there. There are definitely smarter people out there than me. But the video game theory, if you really research NDEs, near-death experiences, and a lot of these other things, and of course Don Hoffman's theories, open reality theories, and of course Tom Gampo's NBT and other theories, this theory actually starts to make a lot of sense. That life is basically one big video game. Also other theories like Hyperionism by Morg, which is also very, very similar to video game theory that life is as a cell dream reality by all creatures and that we're a mathematical mind, is again, a video game is made of mathematics anyways. It's made of code. And this reality is, of course, made of atoms, which is essentially advanced code of the game. So yeah. Video game theory is basically very similar to many other theories. Simulation theory, which is almost practically the same thing. Many, of course, people would like to disagree that life is just a stage play or a school, but basically, you could view school as a game as well. Okay? And life is simply a game. And the whole point that we suffer, it's a part of the game's design. If we won't evolve if we lived in a perfect utopia where everything went all grand and hunky-dory. That's why we have fear and all this suffering. That's why people feel depressed and stuff. Because, one, it isn't easy to stay in the game. And thousands of people commit, of course, suicide or opt out of the game every year. Because being in the game isn't easy. It isn't easy to stay in the game. But most people see it through the end of their lives, and see it basically through it. And people who do quit the game get, of course, punished. Basically. And they basically get, like, why did you quit the game? You had so much potential. And no, there's no hell, or, you'll be sent to purgatory because you did that. You committed suicide, or basically just opted out of the game. Again, suicide is different from normal death by, of course, AIDS or tragedy, because that was a part of the contract. And there's two types of suicide. Suicide could be a part of a contract, which is very rare, or it could be because you just give up. But if you just give up and don't move on, then that's kind of your fault that you basically give up, essentially, in the game. And the punishment is basically you feel guilty. That's basically the big punishment. You feel guilty, and that means you have to go back into another lifetime. Because again, this game is hard. And then you have to try to get it right this time and get your life correctly. So no matter how badly your life is doing, well, don't worry. You're loved by the beings on the other side. God, the source, whatever you want to call it. Which of course is on the other side, always there, supporting you, helping you. You have your guides, you have your soul group, and of course you have your angels and guardian angels always there. You're never truly alone. Even if you're in the worst of times, if you're having the worst of days. Just remember that this reality is only temporary and thus simply just another level in the game.